Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Maurice Brown Comedy Hour. And we have a very special guest for you coming up today, one of the top faith based comedians in the country. He's a hit with Marriage and Family. He's appeared on Showtime, Comedy Central, VH1, and more. He starred in the critically acclaimed Apostles of Comedy, the syndicated comedy series Bananas, his own 1 hour comedy special, Happy Wife, Happy Life, and the Warner Brothers comedy film Thou Shalt Laugh. He's been featured at Montreal's Just for Laughs Festival and HBO's Comedy Arts Festival. He has a dry bar comedy video, also special, that you can see, that has amassed over 100 million views on social media and other platforms, and introducing him to tens of millions of new fans, which you gotta love. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome to the show, coming up momentarily, Mr. Jeff Allen, who's running just a tad bit late, but he'll be joining us in just a moment, just to give you some background on our guest that's coming up here soon. And just to let you guys know, coming up for myself next week, I'm going to be starring in this special by Sparkle Comedy, hosted by Mark Palchik from Washington, D.C. So check this out. It's going to be at 2 o'clock next Wednesday, and featuring Amanda Cohen. Farley will be a part of that. For you local comedians, you know who Farley is. And then Sandra Reichman also will be on that show. That is next Wednesday at 2 p.m. And then on Thursday night at 7:30, I will be with Rhonda Corey on her show. It's kind of like a game show deal thing going on. So that's going to be next week. Like I said, Jeff is running just a tad bit too late. Jeff's out there in Texas. They're on Central Time, and of course in DC we're on Eastern Time. I have a lot of friends out there out west. Maybe I should move out west. Anyway, he's going to be with us very, very soon. Jeff Allen's done a bunch of stuff. Like I said, he's got a dry bar comedy special with over 100 million views. You can see him on VH1, HBO, Showtime. The guy's all over the place. He did the critically acclaimed Thou Shalt Laugh series as well, done by Warner Brothers. Awesome. And they've done like 5 or 6 versions of Thou Shalt Laugh. Bone Hampton, who's been on the show. So Jeff saying that his browser doesn't allow downloaded Chrome. So he's downloading his Chrome right now, hopefully. And Jeff, if you're watching me right now, just and use that last email that I sent you for StreamYard, and you can come on in. But you know, some of these phones are different. They won't act right. I mean, right now I've got an iPhone 6, me and my wife and my son. And then my daughter, with her smart little self, went out and bought herself an iPhone 12. Oh, 11. What's the difference? Anyway, she got one of those top phones, and so she's just chilling, enjoying life, no problem. What those rascals over at Apple did, isn't it Apple? Yeah. What they did was they are now insidiously destroying the phone methodically. So now I have to go out and upgrade to an iPhone. What do we upgrade to? Yeah, 11 or whatever it is, 12 or 13. You tell, we've got to upgrade. So we're living in a very insidious time, ladies and gentlemen. That's all. So Jeff, we understand. I get it. And Jeff, if you're listening, get an iPhone 12. Anyway, because I am. My phone, they're destroying my phone. It's a plot. Anyway, so that's what's going on there, and so Jeff will be with us again, folks, momentarily. Hope everything's going out there going great out there in a COVID-19 world that we're living in. We're living in the midst of a global pandemic, and so we're doing the best we can to get through this stuff. I didn't even think this was going to be real. I thought it was just a big joke, and everybody's overreacting. And I'm in the DC area, so is on the metro and someone cleared their throat. This is around March. And everyone on the Metro said just snapped. They just looked at the man like he was insane. And I said, well, can't the man just enjoy his indigestion alone? I mean, probably was COVID-19. Anyway, like I said, folks, we've got Jeff Allen. He's coming our way very soon. He's working on downloading his Chrome. And just to go over Jeff's accolades one more time, you can see him on VH1. You can see him on HBO. He's got a critically acclaimed comedy series produced by Warner Brothers called Thou Shalt Laugh, which is out. He's got a dry bar comedy special, which he did not too long ago with over 100 million views. Tens of millions of new viewers. He seems to pick up on a regular basis. One of the best faith-based comedians you'll see around. And faith-based entertainment now is making a strong push into the secular world where, we're starting to be recognized for a lot of the work that we're doing. And Jeff is certainly, carrying the banner for that. Yesterday, we had June Von Tolson on at 3 o'clock, and then Brandon Young at 6 out of San Diego. Kid wanted to go out. Police got COVID-19. So my wife's relaying a message to me. The COVID-19, I'm trying to remember the kid wanted. I can't remember. My wife's kind of my writer, and sometimes I forget the jokes that she's written, but she's a good writer. She's got a really good joke. But yeah, we're living in the midst of a global pandemic, by the way, everybody, in case you haven't known. So now we're relegated to doing shows, particularly as comedians, on the virtual platform. And again, if I didn't mention it, I'll mention it again. Next week, check me out on Sparkle Comedy with Mark Palchik at 2 p.m. September 9th next week, featuring Amanda Cohen Farley and Sandra Reichman. We're all going to be doing that. It's kind of the old folks version of comedy. It's going to be, hey, look, I'm 56, so we have like our own section of people that we kind of like reach out to. So if you're 65 and up, tune in. You'll love it. And hopefully you will be able to get through it without getting sick or anything like that, or ill or whatever, because it's going to be a great show. So just have your join us 2 p.m. next week on the Zoom platform for Sparkle Comedy, hosted by Mark Palchik. So we're waiting for our special guest, Jeff Allen, and to all my viewers out there who faithfully follow the Maurice Brown Comedy Hour. I want to thank you so much for hanging in with us. We had Chris Sneed on that was a really good show. Chris Sneed, very good comic, Christian comic that you can see on secular platforms like Who's Got Jokes, hosted by Bill Bellamy, and Roast Me. Although you Roast Me, Chris. Anyway, you can see him on Roast Me. It's a hilarious show. You can see Chris Sneed on. He's a Christian comic, clean guy. You'll see him on some secular platforms representing clean comedy. So we had him on. It was a pleasure. He's out of Los Angeles. Kason Wilson, my buddy from Los Angeles, going to have him on hopefully in a couple of months. I used to be on the Instagram platform, but this platform is so much better. StreamYard by far. So I'm going to have Kason back. I always like having Kason on anyway. I mean, periodically. You got to get your dose of Kason Wilson. Formerly DC based, now out in the Los Angeles area, out there with Chris Sneed and Martin Amini. And also Martin was from DC, who moved out to LA. So a lot of good comics. And Jamel Johnson was in DC, now in LA. So that seems to be the move for a lot of up and coming comics, particularly if you are young, which I am not. I'm here in DC still. But hopefully that will change. It's not that I have a problem with Washington, D.C. I love Washington, D.C. There's a great comedy in D.C. We've had Dave Chappelle come out of D.C. We've had Martin Lawrence come out of D.C. We've had Wanda Sykes come out of Washington, D.C. Mike Birbiglia, who's come out of Washington, D.C. Mike Birbiglia did a special on it wasn't Netflix. I forget the platform he did a few years ago, and he did a major film with Keegan Michael Key from Key and Peele, which I can't think of the name of that film, but that was a very successful major film that he did also from Washington, D.C. So you don't have to go to New York. You don't have to go to Los Angeles, or you don't have to go to San Diego. Love all those places. You can do it right here in Washington, D.C. But I know that Kason went out to LA for other reasons, and I totally understand that. But they got a great comedy platform in DC. You got the Comedy Store, the Comedy Factory. Great. I mean, it goes on. New York, same deal. Just like 4 hours up the interstate on 95 to New York. And they got a lot of comedy spots up there. But Washington, D.C. is going. Washington, D.C. is more of a theatrical town. I see that Jeff Allen is going to be joining us momentarily. I see his device is still working through. And Jeff, just keep working. You'll get it. We're living in not only a COVID-19 world and in the midst of a global pandemic. Did I mention that, by the way? Yes, we are. But these people at Apple, they're trying to take away our iPhone 4s and 5s and 6s, and boom, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the show, my very good comedy friend, Jeff Allen. Jeff, welcome to the show, Jeff. Okay, Jeff. Now I need for you to work on your mic. I can't hear anything. I guess you can hear me, but see if you can work on your volume a little bit. Jeff Allen, ladies and gentlemen, like I said before, you can hear him and see him on VH1, HBO, Showtime. He's got a critically acclaimed comedy show called Thou Shalt Laugh, produced by Warner Brothers. You can see that. He just did a dry bar comedy special recently, over 100 million views on that. One of the top faith-based comics in the country is Jeff Allen. There, Jeff, how you doing, buddy?
Can you hear me?
I got you now, Jeff. We're dealing now, dude.
Oh my gosh, I'm a technological genius. This is unbelievable.
You are now, Jeff, official. You are a technological genius, dude.
Yeah, I just need to get a watch and a tech guy, and I'll be fine. I should have asked. I should know that to ask Eastern or Central time.
Oh, that's okay, Jeff. I had a good friend of yours on yesterday, June Von Colson.
Oh, yeah.
And she was telling me that it's Central Time, and I didn't realize it either, but we kind of got it straightened out, and it worked out pretty good. So I have a lot of friends, apparently, Jeff, out in the Central Time Zone and the Pacific Time Zone, because this is not the first time it's happened. Yeah. So it's all good, Jeff. Don't worry about it.
A lot of flyover country.
Well, Jeff, I was telling everybody, I've got like an iPhone 6. My son, my 21-year-old son, was telling me that Apple is insidiously destroying our phones methodically, so we'll upgrade.
Oh, what a shock. What a shock.
Yeah, what a shocker that what a shocker that is, Jeff. Jeff, talk to us a little bit about how you're dealing with this global pandemic as an entertainer. How are you dealing with that? Are you performing?
Yeah, I've done starting in June. I did a couple shows in June. I probably did 5 or 6 in July, and I was just in Albuquerque. I did a church in Albuquerque this past Friday night. That was a blast.
Okay.
About 800 people there.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah. The sanctuary sat a couple thousand, so they weren't really socially distanced. They didn't care.
Did they attempt to socially distance, or they just
there's 2 schools. There's 2 schools out there, and I'm in the school of let's just get over this garbage and let's get on with our lives. I'm so tired of it, man. I'm tired of hearing the word pandemic. It's not a pandemic. It's just a politically manufactured fear is all it is. And
you know what, Jeff,
if you're 75 overweight and diabetic, stay away from people.
You know what, Jeff, I would tend to agree with you, because the NFL is about to start their season. I don't understand how guys can tackle and sweat and bleed on each other and then go to the sideline and put on a mask. That doesn't. Exactly.
Exactly. And I can sit on an airplane, a steel cylinder, and they can't sit outside next to each other. I mean, it's just, I don't know. I don't want to get in. I'm upset. So dates it depends on the state I'm working. I'm going to Texas in a couple of weeks. That show's been moved 3 times, and I'm
Okay.
hoping this one holds. And it really is up to on the governors and the states and the rules that they've made, and every state is different.
Yeah.
I was just in New Mexico. I get off the airplane and I see a big sign: if you're from out of state, you need to self-isolate for 14 days. Well, screw you. I got a show tonight. I'm not, I'm not
Right.
going to self-isolate. So anyway, I tried to stay away from the nannies, and I
Well,
got back home. I got back
yeah.
home. So
Well, I guess there's no need for me to ask you this question. You've kind of already kind of given the answer, but I'm going to throw it out anyway. As far as performing on like Zoom platforms, have you done any comedy shows like that?
no, I've been asked a number of times, and I think I'm going to finally acquiesce and do one.
Okay.
The guy I met Friday night in Albuquerque came over and gave me his card. He owns an insurance company, a lot of employees in LA, and he really made a good case for it. He said, look, LA they're locked in, they're locked down, they can't go out. And a lot of them, I guess, because of the housing situation in Los Angeles, a lot of them are living in garages converted into apartments.
Wow.
Yeah, so
Wow.
imagine being isolated, living in a garage, and you can't get out to even go grab a meal. So anyway, I looked at it more from, do I have anything to offer somebody sitting in a garage,
Yeah.
uh, isolated, probably depressed? I don't know. So anyway, I'm gonna give it a shot. I don't know how it'll work, but I'll give it a shot.
Well, Jeff, I followed you for a long time as a fan, and so I've found that your start in comedy is rather intriguing, or your journey in comedy to get to the point that you're at now. Can you share a little bit regarding your journey in comedy?
Well, I started in Chicago, 1978, so that was a
Okay.
couple of years ago, and just in the clubs, and I got lucky as a comic. By 1980, the whole country exploded. There were clubs everywhere, so I was
Yeah.
able to travel and make a few bucks and be bad at something until I got better at it. And anyway,
Yeah.
after about 12 years of that, I was ready to get out. And I was,
Okay.
before I met my wife, I was doing 50 weeks a year on the road. So my home was the road. And then I
Yeah.
got married and we moved to Boston, so I didn't have to travel so much. And at the time, I was a drug addict, alcoholic, and
Yes.
it's a great job. If you're, I always said, if you like to sleep, get a job at a mattress factory. If you like to drink, get a job at a bar. So I was able to feed my beast and make a few bucks. And
Yeah.
anyway, when you get married, your wife kind of puts a kibosh on the whole lifestyle
Absolutely.
that I was
Yes.
living. And so it came to a head where I had to make a choice. I either had to quit drinking or get rid of the wife and kids. And I opted to quit drinking. So yeah, and it was a struggle choice. It was like part of me said, you know what? A lot of guys get divorces. A lot of guys pay child support. A lot of guys, and it was hard to look. I had a 3-year-old and a 1-year-old,
Yeah.
not even one. I had 6-month-old. And I looked at those babies and thought, man, I can't do that. So anyway, I went
Yeah.
into a 12-step program, and they said pray. I was an atheist, so I don't know, what do you pray to when
Yeah.
So anyway, that kind of just led me on a journey that took about 7 or 8 years that eventually led me to the Bible and Christ. But
Amen.
it was a long, I started with books, self-help, the New Age. I got into spiritual stuff, Buddhism, and Hinduism, and that's just nothing that took. It was just, I love the Buddhist line. Basically, Buddhism comes down to this: it's your desires that are causing all the misery in your life, which is really true. If you
Yes.
think about it, it's something you want, can't have, or you want to change, and you can't change. So anyway, it's your desires. And I always said the reason it didn't work for me is because I couldn't get rid of my desire to get rid of my desires.
Right.
So anyway, eventually it all led to the Bible and the book of Ecclesiastes, which summed up my 8-year search in its opening line of the book of Ecclesiastes: is meaningless, meaningless, all in life is meaningless. And nothing of this earth will ever give you lasting meaning apart from God. And
Amen. Amen.
that just captured me. That whole thing. I couldn't believe it. I could not believe the book of Ecclesiastes was in the Bible. Not having read the
Okay.
Bible, but I just, in my preconceived notions of the Bible, I couldn't believe that something was that honest.
Yes.
Was in the center of the Bible, right there in the middle of the Bible. And oddly enough, it's in the wisdom books, but I found that out later. But I soaked up Ecclesiastes and I soaked up Job to kind of give you an idea where my head was at.
Well, I mean, what better place to start with than Job and Ecclesiastes?
Yeah, I know. And I found Job actually funny when the first time I read it. I just,
Yeah.
when you got friends like that, who needs enemies?
Exactly. Man, well, that's a heck of an experience, Jeff, and your brother is Tim Allen, is that correct?
Yeah, right. No, not at all.
Okay,
Yeah.
all
Yeah, I
right.
get that. It's funny. I got that. No, I used to get that all the time. And then I was reading my Facebook feed the other day, and
Yeah.
someone said he's not Tim Allen's brother; he's Tim Allen's father. Which, yeah. So I looked up on the Google. Tim Allen's actually 3 years older than me, so that's how
That's what
old I
I
look.
would I would
I guess
definitely
I look a
say
lot
that he's
older
older.
than him.
Yeah.
Yeah, he has better doctors than me. That's all.
Right. Well, anyway, that's something that's always gotten confused out there that you were somehow associated with Tim Allen. But cool, man. But that's so you obviously have gone through a lot of things. You've really accomplished a ton in the faith-based world of entertainment as a comedian. And again, I got to ask you a question that's got an obvious answer, but how indeed does your faith influence you, Jeff, as a performer?
I don't worry too much about outcomes anymore.
Okay.
My prayer before every show is, "You brought me here." So
Yes.
just let me honor you with a chaste tongue, because I still have the ability to fly off the handle every now and then, and
Right. Right.
so yeah, just let everything I do honor you in some way, and that's basically it. I'm just again, I don't worry about, I don't worry about it. If I'm in an audition, it'll be what it'll be. And if it's God's will, it'll be God's will, and I just want to make sure that I'm putting one foot in front of the other and I'm doing the work I need to do. Cause that's my job, is to do the work. And then whatever doors open I believe are his doors. Whatever doors closes, he has a reason for that. And, but I used to worry about that stuff all the time. I used to get wrapped up in what my peers were doing,
Mm-hmm.
There's nothing worse than jealousy and envy and covetousness,
It's a terrible thing. Yes.
it's awful because you have no control over it, and
Yeah.
so I'm grateful, and I'm doing what I can to help younger comics. June is one of them. She comes to our house. We have a writer's
Mm-hmm.
night once a month, and trying to do what I can to give back and get past this stupid COVID thing.
Well, I was telling
I
you.
had a lot of questions for God with that one, man, because I was on a roll. I was on an absolute roll, and I go,
Oh,
okay,
I hear you. I understand.
yeah,
It's really confounding. It's like you wonder what God is up to. And one thing we do know, Jeff, God's definitely up to something. We don't understand it, but
right,
He is in control and He is king of all of this, and He's
right,
doing something with it. But it's and we don't understand it. We don't get it, but it's
right,
part of having faith and just letting Him do what He's going to do.
right,
And so I understand, man. Particularly for comedians, because we feed on the stage. We need audiences. We like our rhythm, particularly for myself, because I've really been dedicated for only 7 years at this. So now it's like it's like I really need to keep getting my reps in. So
right,
it's very frustrating. But I can tell you, Jeff, honestly, by the time I get to the show, I'm kind of like you, though. I mean, if I don't know it now, I'm never gonna know it, and
right,
so I don't go over my stuff, and try to make sure, I got my notes, in my mind or whatever. I'm done.
Yeah.
I just kind of enjoy the atmosphere and talk to other comics until I go up there. Now, 10 seconds before I get up there, Jeff, I go, how am I going to remember this? So, but
Yeah, I know.
God always brings me through, man.
Yeah, when I went back to work in June, so it was March, April, May, June, 4 months,
Yeah.
and my wife informed me at 30 days that I had not been home 30 consecutive days in our entire marriage. And I
Whoa.
said, no, that's not true. She goes, it is true. She goes, I've been waiting for one of those. And
Wow.
and I had the same fear. I went up and I thought, how am I going to remember all this stuff? And it does come. And it's funny. I'm doing Mike Huckabee's show tonight. I'm taping it,
Okay.
and I had to go over. I've done it 3 times, so I had to go back over what I've done for the 3 times to see if I, to know. So I'm putting a set together for tonight,
Okay.
and I threw away like 2 routines where I touched on them. I didn't do the routines on the couch, and I was
Yeah.
so mad at myself for burning, burning a good bit, And
Yeah.
I think I'm
Yeah.
still going to do it. I think I don't know. I'm upset with myself because I did 1 or 2 lines and a 10-line thing,
Yeah.
So
Sure.
yeah. Anyway,
So Chris Rossetti says, has Jeff Allen found being a grandpa the greatest thing?
absolutely, absolutely. Now, I'll give you an idea how my wife is. I could tell you the where I was and what time of day it was when my first granddaughter said my name, Papa. I was in the living room reading a book, and she was in the bathtub. She was spending the night, and
Okay.
Tammy was in there. She calls me into the bathroom. Tammy goes, "Get in here, get in here." I thought something bad happened. I run in the bathroom, and Evelyn's sitting in the bathtub, and Tammy says, "Who is that?" And Evelyn looks at me and she goes, "Papa." And so I start getting all choked up, man. It was like
Yes.
most
Understandable.
amazing thing. Anyway, Tammy looks at me and says, "Oh, Jeff, you gotta go get tested for that low T stuff, man. That's not good." Yo, I'm having a moment. Come on, give me a break. So you
So
crying? Yeah.
being a grandfather, Jeff, that is, and you have how many grandchildren? Just one?
Four
Four.
grandchildren.
Wow. Okay.
7 down to
Yeah.
4. And that's why I'm not too worried about the COVID. If you've been around little children, your immune system is pretty solid, man. They would go to preschool and suck up just about every germ known to mankind. At the age of 4, they actually lick doorknobs. They don't care. They just, and they sneeze in your face. They don't care. Yeah, how's that one for you, Papa? So
It's amazing, Jeff, you say that because when you think about little toddlers and the fact that it's been said medically that, kids don't typically contract the illness,
right,
God protects the babies, man,
right.
and they'll put anything in their mouth. They'll do anything. So
That's why they need to go to school. They got to be pumping up that immune system for later on in life, man.
Jeff, let me ask you this about your material as far as writing. Do you ever go out to open mics at this stage of your comedy career and work on new stuff?
No, I was working enough to where I could work my new stuff. I was working 5-6 days a week out on the road, so I was able to. And I was thinking about doing an open mic. We had set up an open mic here in my little town. I live in a small town in Tennessee, and they had a coffee shop that was doing music. And I went in and said, "Hey, would you give us the stage once a month?"
Yeah.
Because I wanted some locals. Because the local open mic nights, they only give them 3 to 5 minutes. You can't
Yeah.
develop an act in 3 to 5. So I wanted to give 10 to 15, at least
Okay.
give them a chance to stretch a little bit. And it was
Right.
going great. We had a blast. And then COVID hit, and the coffee shop went out of business. So
Wow.
yeah.
Oh my gosh, that's incredible. Marlo Rutz says, Jeff, your comedy was a blessing to my neighbors who were struggling with their teenagers. Your comedy brought them laughter and hope.
Oh, that's great. Yeah, who doesn't struggle with their teenagers? Yeah. I always said teenagers are God's revenge on mankind. God woke up one day and said, let's see how they like it to create someone in their own image who denies their existence. So,
Right.
that's fun.
Well, Jeff, I've got three now. I got 23, 21, and 18-year-olds. And I told them, Jeff, I said, listen, let me tell you guys something. You're not thugs. Okay. Just understand it. You're not thugs. Okay. You have a dad who's a black man that talks like Tom Hanks. So, not going to happen.
Yeah, somebody, I heard it from a sermon years ago, said, sin looks great in movies. Sin makes great movies. Doesn't make for good life. Doesn't make for a good life. But in a movie, hey, it's fun watching.
Jeff, do you ever perform in secular clubs?
Oh, I do. I'm going. That's what the Dallas States. I got back into clubs about a year ago.
Okay.
Yeah, I stopped doing them because I wasn't drawing. It wasn't my audience. And I'd look out there, and I realized I was the only one in the club that got older over the years. Everybody else that was going to clubs was the same age, to 25 to 35, and I was 50. So I just got out, and I said I'll go back when I can draw an audience, and my audience is coming out. So it's interesting because the clubs, they're not used to seeing people over 50. and
No,
I'm
they're
getting a
not.
lot of millennials who grew up with Bananas. I taped those Bananas shows back in the 90s.
Yeah.
And I'm getting a lot of millennials coming up to me after the show going, my parents would only let us listen to you when we were growing up because you were clean. And so now they're 30 somethings and they're coming out to the clubs. So it's really interesting. It makes me feel old, when I hear 35-year-olds go, I grew up listening to you.
Well, yeah. Jeff, I do a lot of open mics in Washington, D.C. I'm 56, so I'm around these young kids a lot, trying to fit in and just get my humor over the plate, as it were. And it's gone pretty okay, but I find it interesting what you said. I probably would be better served to focus on, my audience because it's just more relatable, but it's actually stretched me because I've figured out a way to kind of connect with them on some level, and then being clean at the same time. It's quite a challenge, but I've been able to do it fairly well. But I think I like what you said. I probably should start focusing more, on my audience.
Someone told me years ago when I was they were working a club and they didn't do well. The packed house, didn't do well. And after the show, he was in the dressing room for about 20 minutes thinking, he goes, that was a good show. And everybody was thinking, well, you didn't do that well. And he said, yeah, but the people, as I was looking around, the people that I would have handpicked to be in my audience, they were laughing. And, again, you're trying to judge a book by its cover, but, that resonated with me because at that time I was still drinking and drugging, and I realized that there were people that were coming over to me were all wearing wife beater shirts, and they were not people I wanted to go out and have a drink with. They were all asking me, "You want to come out and have a drink?" No, I really don't. I don't want to be near you. You scare me, and the tats and all of that. So anyway, I started paying attention to who I was connecting with, and all of a sudden I realized I was connecting to a lot of angry white guys, and I didn't think that would be my core who would carry me far. So I started paying attention to what I was doing. That was one of my standard heckle lines, was when someone heckled me, I'd always go, hey, I just got one question for you. What am I doing that gave you the impression I care what you think? Because I'll stop doing it. Whatever I was doing, I'll stop. So,
well, I'm glad you mentioned that about hecklers, Jeff, because I was going to ask you, how do you deal with them?
I don't get many anyway. I can't tell you the last time I had a heckler. Again, it comes from drawing your own audience. And also in the churches, let's face it, if you're going to heckle in a church, you got a problem. Maybe you should talk to your pastor about.
Right.
And I'm a storyteller.
I'm
a storyteller. I keep the show moving. I don't ask rhetorical questions. I learned that years ago because.
Is that right? Okay.
Yeah, I don't go, hey, did you ever do this? Did you ever do that?
Because you're opening the door.
Well, that's it. Drunks go, oh, he's talking to me. No, I'm, and then you have to explain that what a rhetorical question is, and then it gets the show off track. So I just stopped doing it.
So Jeff, I take it you do not do crowd work, really?
No, not really.
Yeah.
I found back in the day, I had 2 or 3 guys wanted to beat me up. Again, in clubs, not, obviously the churches, but in the clubs, you don't know who's having just on the edge, And I had a guy one night that was just glaring at me the whole show. He was with a girl, and he went to the bathroom and he came back, and I said something like, "Well, I hope you peed that bad attitude out of you," And he flipped me off, and he kept pointing at me the rest of the show. Kept pointing at me, and then after the show, everybody leaves. He's in the parking lot, pacing the parking lot like a caged cat, waiting for me to come home.
Yeah.
The club owner goes, "You got to go." I go, "I'm not leaving, man, without a police escort." I said, "This guy's a lot more motivated than I am. I'm not gonna roll around on the pavement because he's got an attitude problem." And then I realized, I go, "You know what? I don't need to talk to anybody. I just don't." It just, again, I heard about a guy in New York dealt with a heckler, and then he went to the bathroom, and the guy walked in while he was standing at the urinal, and he took the back of his head and he smashed it into the wall without any warning at all. He just smashed it. Now, and then, the guy hits the floor. He goes, "Now say something funny," So
wow.
Anyway, again, it's a different world. So it wasn't that important to me, and I felt it forced me to write stuff to keep people engaged for, But every now and then I'll point down at a guy and I go, "You're married, right?" And that's kind of the extent of what I do.
You know what, Jeff? It's interesting you say that. First of all, gone are the days of Don Rickles, right?
Yeah.
Don Rickles was able to pull that off. It's amazing. He never, ever got anyone to that point. But he said the worst it got for him is that he does this number. He says, "Is that your wife?" He goes, "Yeah." Oh. He does that stuff. And so Don, he goes back to the dressing room, and he's doing this stuff out in Vegas. You got a lot of mafioso guys in the audience, and this guy was one of them. And he knocked on his dresser door. The guy was waiting for him, and Don said, "Okay, this is it. It finally caught up to me."
Right.
And the guy said, "Donnie, that was a great joke. Can I get your autograph?"
That's great.
Yeah. So you just never know. But Jeff, I was doing a show and everybody's having a great time. Speaking of the glare, and there was one guy in the audience that was looking at me like he wanted to kill me. And I didn't get it because we were having a good time. Everyone was having a good time. But that guy he gave me the death stare, Jeff. And I said, "You know what? I'm just going to focus on everybody else and just ignore the guy."
Right.
And thankfully, nothing ever happened. But I just said that just to piggyback on what you said a moment ago. You never know what people are thinking out there.
Right. Especially in this day and age.
Especially in this day and age, it's not like when we were coming through, when comedy, in the 80s, and 70s and 80s, where, people didn't really get mad like they do now. Would you agree with that?
Oh, absolutely. That's I don't do any social commentary. I make no unless I have a crack here, a crack there, and then I tell the audience, "Shut up, that was a good joke," and don't send me an email. I don't.
Right.
Yeah. I get asked all the time, "Do you do politics?" I go, "No, why would I?"
Yeah.
I got a quarter of a million Facebook followers, and not one of them have ever asked me my opinion on anything. So,
well, and I love your humor, Jeff, because you just talk about all relatable things. Everyone had, most people are married, most people have kids, most people have to go to the bathroom, most people have to do certain things. So you just kind of keep things where it's relatable, and it's very unlikely anyone would be upset by your subject matter and your topics, and that's a safe way to go. And if you can perfect that, you would be you that's where you want to be, particularly in the mindset of the typical audience today.
Yeah, in the corporate world,
yeah.
I've had one incident in my entire career in Seattle for a group of environmental lawyers.
Okay.
I believe they were left of Fidel Castro.
Oh
And
man.
yeah, they didn't like the way I talked about my wife, so they threw me off the stage. They
Oh wow.
told me to leave. And the funniest thing about it was because they were lawyers, this woman who just couldn't stand the sight of me,
Yeah.
who had me leave, sent me
Oh
an
man.
email and said,
Yeah.
I did what I did on my own. The law firm had nothing to do with it. You're welcome to come back anytime you want and tell your little jokes. It was very condescending. And what I ended up doing was, long story short, was I bought a goat in her name for a village in Nicaragua through World Vision. And I probably figured because she's from Seattle, she's probably into New Age. And since I studied New Age, I kind of know how to talk to these people. So I wrote her back an email and I said, I don't know how we got off on such a negative foot here, but I want you to know I bought a goat for you and for the village in your name. There's a goat. There's a village getting milk from a goat because of our little thing. I took a negative out of the universe and I threw a positive up in it. So God bless you. And he writes back, "Oh, I love World Vision. I love it." You know, I go, "Shut up." You know, leave me alone.
That's pretty good. Hey, Cynthia, how are you? Thanks for tuning in. We've got Jeff Allen, faith-based comedian, who's got a lot of good stuff out there. Got to check out Thou Shalt Laugh, Dry Bar Comedy Special. By the way, Jeff, when was your Dry Bar Comedy Special released?
Well, I did the first one 2 years ago, maybe, and then the last one last year was released right before COVID. So that was a great timing of a thing. But the second one is, I think, from my end of it, the performance end of it was better than the first one. The first one got a lot more views and plays and stuff, but the second one I had been able to work on for months. I opened my show with the opening 35 minutes was going to be the Dry Bar Special. So it was tight and it was good, and then COVID hit. So
Yeah.
uh,
Jeff, we were talking about a lot of different experiences on stage. I'm curious, what is your worst bombing experience since you've been involved with comedy?
well, probably Seattle wasn't pleasant, but that wasn't even really that wasn't bad because everybody left.
Yeah,
So yeah, the people that stayed were actually enjoying it, except for this woman. I never understand why people, half the room left for whatever reason, and the other half that stayed was enjoying it, and except for this particular woman who came up and threw me out. But I've had beer bottles. My favorite story. I was in New Jersey,
yeah,
and I was just sober, maybe a month or two, and the college I was working it was chaos, just chaos. There were people walking up to me on stage, getting in my face and going, "You're not funny. You're not funny." And I'm taking it because I need the paycheck. And they're
yeah.
screaming and hollering. And finally, somebody hit me in the chest with a beer bottle.
Okay.
And I said, "Thank you. I can leave now." Because that gave me permission to leave. No one's going to expect me to stay up there after getting hit with an object. So I'm
Oh
leaving.
man.
And the woman that hired me was drunk, young college student, young woman. Anyway, she's following me to my car. She's cussing at me. "I'll sue you. I'll sue you. You can't leave." Anyway, I turned around and told her, I said, "I want you to understand something. I got about this much dignity left and self-respect. And I'm taking it home and I'm going to have a nice night with my wife. Goodbye."
Oh man, Jeff, that is tough
That
business,
was, yeah,
man.
that was a bad night. That was a bad night.
Wow. Well, and that's the pitfall of this business. It's part of it, you know. I
Right.
mean, prayerfully it never gets that bad. Stories out there's worse than that, but it's just part of comedy, and you have to be able to kind of do this number and get back up
Yeah.
there and do it again.
I always likened it to a boxer. You're not a boxer until someone punches you in the face. Then you'll make a
Wow.
decision if you want to box.
Wow, I
You're
love
not
that
a comic.
analogy,
You're
Jeff.
not a comic till you bomb, and then you'll make
Yeah,
this and humiliated and shamed out and all of that.
yeah,
Then you go home and you'll decide if you want to go back and experience that again because it's going to come
yeah,
again. And all you do is separate the distance between those shows. That's all.
yeah.
Uh, the first year you're doing it, it happens a lot. And then you get better at what you learn.
Sure.
You learn craft, and you get a little better at it. But yeah, in corporate shows, some of them are tight, But
Yeah.
you know, I did one over Christmas. Christmas is always fun because they hold them hostage with Christmas bonuses,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
they're forced to sit and listen to you. You know, so I always tell them, you know, if I'm not doing well, I go, look, I'll be done in 20 minutes. You can get your bonus and go home. You know, so patronize, just patronize. It'd be a great Christmas gift to me if you just fake well.
So Jeff, John Peters says he saw you in Lancaster County, Pennsylvania a few years ago. Absolutely hilarious.
Yeah,
I don't know if you recall that show or not, but he had a great
going
time.
back. I'm going back to that area coming
Yeah.
up. Coming up.
And then we got Chris Rossetti says, have you been able to maintain happy wife, happy life while sheltering in place?
Well, one, I'm not sheltering in place. I never did. So I, you know, I went off and played golf 3 days a week, and you know, went to the grocery store, went to Walmart, walked around, you know. But other than that, yeah, my wife told me, she goes, your life really hasn't changed other than the fact that you quit bringing home money. I go, yeah, and that's a big change. That's a big change. You know, so,
Oh my gosh, that's funny,
yeah,
Jeff. I love
we
it.
had a moment. We had a moment
Yeah.
probably 45 days in. I have a beautiful wife in spirit that has she doesn't let it go long if she feels neglected. And I've told
Okay.
her 100 times over the years. I said, look, I'm the kind of man that'll put my head down and do what's in front of me, and I'll forget you're in the room for weeks, you know, if you let
Yeah.
me. So
Yeah.
if you got a problem, let me know. I said, you know, I love you with all my heart and soul. And if you think I'm ignoring you because I don't love you, then you're mistaken. I'm ignoring you because that's the kind of man I am. Again, I do what's in front of me, you know. And so
Right.
anyway, she came to me after about 45 days. She goes, I'm starting to feel like I'm not part of your life. And I go, great. Okay. What do you need? What do we need to do? You know, so you know, she's low maintenance. So, I mean, it was just hold her hand, hug her every now and then, kiss her, you know, and let her know that I know she's around, you know. So,
Right.
that's the kind of woman I needed. God gave me the woman I needed, just somebody that can smack me in the face and go, you know, pay attention, you know. And
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
that's
Well,
it. You know,
it
that's all I
sounds
needed.
like you
It's not a hard
sounds
thing
like
for me
you
to do. I mean, she's a beautiful woman. I have no problem paying attention to my wife, but I tend to get sidetracked with all the distractions.
Oh, I can understand. I mean, the life of a comic, particularly someone at your level, you know, a lot of the traveling, you're very popular comic in the faith-based community. But I mean, you know, when you're traveling around, you gotta have the right teammate. You know, my wife, great teammate for me. She fully supports what I'm doing. I couldn't do it unless she was behind me.
Absolutely.
And it takes a special woman to support the kind of stuff we do, you know?
We've often said that. There's not I can't imagine what percentage of the population could live with me for
Yeah.
34 years. And go
Yeah.
back to even the first 8 years, which was hell. But even the
Yeah.
last 26 years, as a Bible believing Christian, I'm still gone. You know, I'm still
Yeah.
gone a lot, and that's really kind of the balance that we've kind of worked out. We have our separate lives, then we have a life together, and
Yeah.
we've learned to kind of enjoy our time together. We have found hobbies that are things to do. Most of it's just watching television. You know, we like to crochet. So she can crochet while she watches TV, and you know, we just try to find shows that we enjoy and spend time together. That's basically it. You know.
Yeah. Yeah.
And
Jeff,
then you know, we love to eat, you know, but restaurants have been kind of shut down.
well, I mean, it sounds like a great, it sounds like a happy wife, happy life to me, Jeff. Sounds like you're doing a great job, man. Let me ask you, how do you deal with the butterfly experience? I know you were so far down the road. I saw Bob Newhart do an interview once, and I think Bob is in his 90s now. Bob
Right.
Newhart, late 80s, early 90s, and Bob Newhart, he said, you know what? If I had to do a show tomorrow, I'd still have butterflies.
Right.
You know, he says anytime he performs, he always has butterflies. What is that experience like for you?
Well, nerves are one thing. You know, I was scheduled to do a television show before COVID,
Hmm.
and I was really nervous about it because they chose the material. I didn't really necessarily like the material they chose,
Okay.
and they took out a couple of the lines that really kind of were the glue that held them together because they
Okay.
thought they were harsh on my wife, and I always thought it was odd because my wife isn't bothered by it. Why would you be bothered by it? You know?
Right.
And but anyway, that's what was making me nervous, and I was having a hard time with the rhythm of the routine. I was working it
Hmm.
while I was working the clubs, getting it, and it was only 90 seconds to 2 minutes. I mean, it was a really short set.
Yeah.
And anyway, that would have been a nerve wracking set. So how I deal with it is, you know, again, it's God, you brought me here. This is, you know, I'm here because of you. So why would
Yeah.
you let me fall on my face? I'm not going to fall on my face. I'm just all I want to do is deliver the material and then leave it up to whoever watches it to
Yes.
thumbs up it or thumb down it. I mean, you know, it's funny reading the comments on YouTube. You know, YouTube is a lot harsher than my Facebook page. You know, my Facebook is fans. YouTube is just people who wander over to hear things. And
Yeah. Yeah.
you
Yeah.
know, and I love the ones that go, "This guy's not funny at all." You know, I go, "Well, I haven't heard that in 35 years. You know, 40 years."
Yeah, you have some harsh commentary on YouTube, but I
Yeah,
like what you said there about your faith, though, Jeff. At the end of the day, that's what it's about. I mean, ultimately, for most faith-based performers, at the end of the day, I mean, I'm trusting God. I'm
right.
going in, and here it is.
Yeah.
So and so it's just about
I'm assuming
trusting Christ.
I'm assuming that I have the proper tools is why the door opened, and that's why I'm having the opportunity.
Jeff,
So I
did
don't
you
know.
did yeah. Did you have any comedy heroes as you were coming along?
Oh my gosh, I wanted to be Richard Pryor. I was I was imitating when I started. I imitated Richard Pryor. It was easy to get away with because I was a white suburban kid, so nobody looked at me and said, "Boy, he's doing Richard Pryor," you know, because I didn't
Yeah.
sound like him. I didn't look like him, but I had the mannerisms, you know, all the I was doing coke, well, gotta do coke, and I grew up. I When I was in high school, I went to school in the afternoon. Our high school was
Yeah.
so big, we had split shifts, so I didn't have to go to school till 11 o'clock. So my parents were long gone, so I'd put on George Carlin's Class Clown album in the morning and get ready for school to that. And yeah,
Yeah.
Carlin, Cosby. Cosby was probably really the most influence I had because my father loved Bill Cosby, and my father
Yeah.
was had depression issues. So to see my dad laugh, and he had a great laugh, um, it was always with Cosby. And we would sit
Yeah.
over the hi-fi. Remember the hi-fis? And,
Yes.
he'd put an album on, and we'd all sit as a family in the living room and listen to Cosby. And so that's probably one of the reasons why I migrated towards comedy in the arts.
Yes.
I started in magic. I played music for a while, but it was comedy because uh, just to make my dad laugh or to make people laugh. Uh, it,
Yeah. I I I actually did a little radio. I did a lot of radio back in the early '90s in North Carolina. It's kind of how I got my start in media. Because when you mentioned that you spent the record, so I've done that quite a bit. But I also used to do play-by-play for football, basketball, baseball on the radio in
oh,
college and high school. So it's kind of how I got my start in it. But as I got into comedy, my experience helped me because I was in a film in 2016 with Jen Gotson Chandler and Tommy Ford, who was on the TV show Martin, the guy that never had a job that lived
oh,
next door. I don't know if you remember that show
yeah,
or not,
yeah,
but so I made that film and I had a lot of verbiage to remember in a very critical scene. And believe it or not, comedy helped me to get through that because we got tons of information
right,
that we pretty much need to, we're not robots, so it's not word for word like a movie script is,
right,
because that's easier in a movie script because it's just every word you got to say. But the comedy that we do, it prepares us for things like it was like a piece of cake doing
Yeah.
that versus getting up and doing stand-up comedy. And speaking of films, have you ever been approached, Jeff, by faith-based producers? I don't know, Kendrick Brothers, to be a part of a film?
No, well, I've done one. I was just in one called The Perfect Race.
Okay.
Um, and I just got sides for an audition for a film they're doing. I gotta have it. I got it self tape tonight or tomorrow morning. I just got
Okay.
the sides today, so I audition, but so far, again, I'm getting auditions. I had an agent. I finally let her go just because I felt I was wasting her time. I was traveling so much doing comedy. I couldn't be there for in-person auditions, and I
Okay.
couldn't make self tapes on the road. I wasn't technologically savvy enough to do it. So, anyway, I
Right.
finally let her go. I said, "Look, I'm just wasting your time here." So anyway, she was putting me up for roles for 40-year-olds and 45-year-olds and
Yeah.
30 somethings. And again, I said to my manager, I think she's just throwing me to whatever, she's just putting everything out and hoping some hits. And I
Yeah.
was more interested in doing stuff, for my age. And so anyway, the casting director that sent this, I had met when I was auditioning more often. And she said, "I'll keep you in mind." So anyway, she just sent the sides last night. But yeah, I'd love to. A friend of mine wrote a screenplay for me, loosely based on my life and comedy, and we shopped it around for a while, but uh, nothing nothing came of it. Which I
I
think is,
hear you.
it's interesting. It's funny because they were pitching it at like a $4 or $5 million budget, and I'm thinking, I've seen films that were made for $40,000, $50,000 that were great. You could shoot on an iPhone anymore. When I was going to acting class, these kids were shooting music videos on iPhones, and they looked like the best stuff I ever saw on MTV. It
Yeah.
was out of
Yeah.
this world. It was absolutely out of this world. I couldn't, I was in a couple of them. They'd ask, would you mind coming in and playing my dad or something? And I go, yeah, sure, no problem.
Uh-huh.
And you'd shoot it in a guy's living room, and 2 months later, he'd send it to me, and I'd go, "Oh my gosh, this is what we shot." And all you did was have an iPhone. It's amazing what these kids can do. It's
It
amazing.
is amazing what
June
they can do with it.
Colson. Hello, lady. Well, I love the trophy.
June Von Colson. Yes, she was
Yeah,
on the show yesterday. She
yeah.
speaks very highly of you, Jeff. And
One of
I
my
tell you,
favorite
man,
people.
she
Hot
said,
dog.
I said, June. She was like, well, I wonder if God called me that. I was wondering if God, I said, June, God called you to this. Nobody puts people like Jeff Allen in your life. People like Robert G. Lee and Bonehampton in your life to mentor you and be more than open to help you. God called you to do
Yeah.
this. Yeah, she has tons of
Well, it helps
respect
that
for you, and she's blessed
it
that
helps that
she has that
good
relationship
people.
with you.
It helps she's good people.
Jeff, I tell you, we've killed this hour. I want to thank you so much, sir, for agreeing to be on this show.
Oh,
I'm
no
highly
problem.
honored,
Sorry about
and it has been a great pleasure.
the time difference. I'll remember next time.
Hey, Jeff, don't worry about it, man. It's perfectly fine. And I want to give you an opportunity to just let fans know how they can follow you on, social media or contact you for booking.
Oh, well, Facebook. Just go to Facebook, my fan page, and sign on there. Instagram, J Allen Comedy, I think it is on Instagram,
Okay.
I'm actually on Parlor. I shifted over from Twitter to Parlor. I still have a Twitter account, Jeff Allen Comedy, but I also have a Jeff Allen Comedy on Parlor. And as far as booking, everything's on the website, jeffallencomedy.com. They can just go there and get my manager's information and request whatever they need. And as far as videos, YouTube channel, I have a YouTube channel, Jeff Allen Comedy, and all that stuff that I know nothing about. So.
Okay. Ladies and gentlemen, we've been talking with the very funny faith-based comedian Jeff Allen on the Maurice Brown Comedy Hour. Jeff, thank you so much once again for being on the show, man. God bless you, and may the peace of
Anytime.
Christ be with you and your family.
Thank you, man. Blessings to you.
Amen.